ಮಾನ್ಯ ಅಪರಾಯುಕ್ತರು ಧಾರವಾಡ ರವರ ನಿರ್ದೇಶನ ಮೇರೆಗೆ 2019ರ SSLC ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಫಲಿತಾಂಶ ಉತ್ತಮಪಡಿಸಲು ಟಿವಿ ಪಾಠಗಳು ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಇಲಾಖೆಯಿಂದ ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡಿಸಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಇದು ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಸಾರವಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಮತ್ತು ಪೋಷಕರು ಇದರ ಸದುಪಯೋಗಪಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕೋರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಮುಖ್ಯ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಈ ಟಿವಿ ಪಾಠಗಳದು ಉತ್ತಮ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರುಗಳಿಂದ ವಿಷಯ ಆಧಾರಿತ ಪಾಠಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಸಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷ ಫಲಿತಾಂಶಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಉತ್ತಮ ಪಡೆಯುವ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಪಾಠಗಳು ಇದ್ದಾವೆ. ಉತ್ತಮ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರು ಈ ಪಾಠಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಇದನ್ನು ವೀಕ್ಷಿಸಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನು ಸದುಪಯೋಗಪಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಈ ವರ್ಷ ಫಲಿತಾಂಶ ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಜ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಹಿರಿಮೆ ತರಬೇಕು ಧಾರವಾಡ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅಂತ ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿನಂತಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಹಾಗೂ ಈ ಪಾಠಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿರುವ ಎಲ್ಲ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರಿಗೆ ಅಭಿನಂದಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಉತ್ತಮ ಪಾಠಗಳು ಇದ್ದಾವೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಇದು ವೀಕ್ಷಿಸಿ ಅಂತ ಪೋಷಕರಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತು ಮಕ್ಕಳಲ್ಲಿ ವಿನಂತಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ.
Video lessons conducted by DDP Office Dharwad. I am Mr. Sudarshan Patil, English teacher, first language English, Government Adarsh Vidyalaya, Dharwad. In the last session, dear children, we discussed about the lessons, how to tackle about the 10 lessons and the 3 supplementary readings.
Myself, Patsy Corey, dealing with the first language English from Shanti Southern School.
Children, the first lesson, first poem of the textbook is A Pair of Saros Cranes, written by Dr. Manmohan Singh. This poem speaks about the love and affection between the male crane and the female crane. In this poem, the poet speaks about a situation where the hunters kill the male crane when they are flying in the morning time. After watching the death of the male crane, the female crane was shocked. The female crane fluttered in the air. It turned circle and circle and came down to the place where the male crane was shot at. After the hunters left the place, the female crane went near the male crane and tried to pick up the feathers with the beaks, kissed the male crane and tried to hatch the body of the male crane. In this way, the female crane expressed its sadness after the death of the male crane. So dear children, from this poem you can expect a question: how does the poet explain the sadness of the female crane after the death of the male crane? So you need to concentrate on these points. After the death of the male crane, when the hunters went away, the female crane went to the spot, tried to pick up the feathers with its beaks and the blood-stained feathers and kiss the male crane and tried to sit on the male crane and hatch it, as if the poet uses this word hatch, wherein the female crane is trying to give a rebirth to the male crane. So this answer will fetch you 2 marks, dear children. When you go into next part of the poem, you find the poet explains the cruel nature of the hunters. The hunters are very cruel in nature. After shooting the male crane, they hold the male crane by its neck and they put it in a dirty linen bag. This shows the cruel nature of the hunters who, after killing the male crane, put it into a plastic and took it away. So this answer will fetch you 2 marks, dear children. Concentrate the word cruel nature of the hunters, where they did not bother about the life of the male crane. Next, in the end, the poet explains the end of the female crane. This is the crux of this particular poem. There is a nature that when the male crane dies, the female crane also starves till the death. So dear children, this poem gives us a message about the relationships we need to maintain in the modern era. And then from the examination point of view, you can expect a question: how is the end of the female crane explained in the poem? In the end, according to the poet, a sea waves comes and takes away the female crane to the heaven, the place where the male crane is already gone. In other words, the meaning is the female crane dies in the memory of the male crane and she directly goes to the heaven where already the female crane was dead. So children, if you concentrate on these three questions, you can fetch 2 marks in your forthcoming annual examination. Now the poem number 2.
As we move on to the second poem, that's Abraham Lincoln's letter to his son's teacher. Children, as you know, your parents have very carefully chosen a school for you. And what is your expectations? Your parents have great expectations from you, and that is why they chose the best for you. Here also Abraham Lincoln, when he writes a letter to his son's teacher, there is a lot of expectations from her. He doesn't want his son, means to say, he doesn't want his son to just follow the crowd or be a hero, or just in the sense like just follow a crowd without himself knowing what is the exact meaning of it. Here he wants his son to be a hero but not a selfish politician. So my dear students, you can expect a 4 marks question in this the summary of the poem, and you can put in the main points. Like, it is far honorable to fail than to cheat. Teach him to have faith in his own ideas, even if everyone tells him they are wrong. Teach him to be gentle with gentle people and tough with tough. Then you can justify your, they may ask you to justify the tests of fire makes fine steel. That is, along with the theory, let the son be even practical, let him have practical knowledge. Mean to say, let him have theory knowledge as well as practical knowledge.
Poem number 3 is The Body and the Temple, written by Baswanna. It's originally in Kannada and it is translated by Ramanujan into English. This poem speaks about the helplessness of the speaker. The poet himself is a speaker in this poem. He speaks about his helplessness. He is requesting the god Lord Shiva that he is unable to build a temple. This poem is based on the Vachana written by Baswanna. This is a famous Vachana written during the 12th century, which speaks about the different sections of the society. Here the speaker is in helpless nature. He is asking, is requesting the god that I am not a rich person, I cannot build a temple. He says, my body itself is a temple, my head is the cupola, my body is the shrine, and the legs are pillars. So children, dear children, you can expect a 3 marks question here, or this poem can be asked for memorization. In case this question is asked for memorization, you can expect 4 marks question, which is an easy task. You can by these 12 lines poems in a short way, so that you can fetch 4 marks in your annual examination. In case if they don't ask a 4 mark question, you can expect a 3 marks question. They may ask you the question about how does the poet compare himself to the temple. So this way, when you want to write the answer, you can easily put the keywords. Head is compared to the cupola of gold, the body is compared to the shrine, and the legs are compared to the pillars. So dear children, if you write these 3 points, you will fetch 3 marks. One more question you can expect from this is, they may ask you a figures of speech question. My legs are pillars. It's either you can term it as metaphor or you can term it as personification. So dear children, if you invest your time on this particular poem, you can fetch either 3 marks or 4 marks. Additionally, you can get 1 more marks for your figure of speech. Now the poem number 4.
Poem number 4 is Lochinvar, written by Sir Walter Scott. Your expectation can be a 2 marks question, maybe 1 or 2 questions. A question like, how did the bride's father receive Lochinvar and what did he ask him? Or, how did Eileen express her love towards Lochinvar. What clues of his plan does Lochinvar give Ellie? As you know, this poem is for memorization and only the first 4 stanzas is required that you learn them by heart. The first stanza or the second stanza or the third stanza or maybe the fourth contains 4 marks. The lines of the poems has a connection between one another. As the very first line says, young Lochinvar has come out of the west, through all the white border his step was the best. To save his good broadsword, he weapons had none, he rode all unharmed and he rode all alone. So faithful in love and so dauntless in war. There never was a knight like the young Lochinvar. So these lines have a connection to one another. So if you understand the concept of these lines, it's very easy for you to memorize this poem, and it's not at all going to be difficult for you because, as I told you, it has a connectivity between them. Moving on to the next poem, poem number 5, A Poison Tree, written by William Blake. Here also, as you know, this poem is for memorization. Any one stanza will be asked. Here also I would like to tell you that the lines have a connection between one another. Like, if I was angry with my friend, I told my wrath. First you need to understand the meaning of wrath. Wrath is nothing but anger. And the wrath did end. It means to say that when you speak out, your friend comes to know about it and the matter is solved. But when you are angry with your foe, meaning of foe, enemy. I told not and my wrath did grow. That is because of our ego, we do not like to speak to our enemies, and that's how our wrath keeps growing within us. So there is lines which connect one another and you need to understand so that you write it in a better way.
The poem number 6 is That Time of the Year. This poem is written by William Shakespeare. This is a sonnet. As you know, children, sonnet is a 14-line poem where each stanza consists of 4 lines, and that 4 lines is called as quatrain. In this way, 4 plus 4 plus 4, 12, plus last 2 lines is the couplet which summarizes the entire poem. Dear children, this poem is very closely related to our life. Man takes birth, he becomes a baby, child, adult, old age and death. So here in this poem, the poet speaks about the reality of the life. The poet assumes himself he is in the age of the old age. He compares his life in the evening age, and he used another word called as autumn season. In the autumn season where the tree loses its leaves. So when the trees loses its leaves, the birds do not settle. So he uses this comparison, this metaphor. The entire poem is about the using of metaphor. He compares the tree without the leaves like his life, where in the old age he do not have anybody with him. So dear children, this lesson, he in this poem he is speaking about his views during the old age. What are the expectations from him from the society? So you can expect a 3 marks reference to context kind of question, where the first stanza, third line, fourth line speaks about bare ruined choice, the birds did not sit. So that means from this line, when you need to answer these kind of questions, you need to start with this line is taken from the poem That Time of the Year, written by William Shakespeare, and this line is said by the speaker to his friend. He says, I have become old, I don't have my friends, my life has become like a tree where there are no leaves, and that too during the time of autumn season. And in further, when you go into the second quatrain of the poem, he says, my life has become like death's second self. Here what does he mean by death's second self? Every day when a human being goes to sleep, he is dead to the whole world. So that death's second self, he uses a metaphor to compare it with the death. So he is telling his friend that I am very near to the death, and this is the law of the nature. So he is asking his friend, I may die anytime. So you just by listening to this, his friend starts loving him and the love becomes more strong. And when you go into the third stanza, he speaks about the youth days. He is telling about his youth days to his friend. So here in this poem, the poet is highlighting the life cycle of the human beings, how it keeps on changing age-wise. So he says the speaker is in the age of the evening time, where he is nearing his to the death. So dear children, read the entire poem and you find many old English words, because this poem is written on the 16th century based English. So instead of reading it in that old fashion, you can paraphrase it, or you can use the latest the according uses of the dictionary. You can arrange the words according to the simple meaning and you can easily understand. Try to understand the summary of the poem. The gist of this poem is that he is comparing his life with the tree during an autumn season. So I think if you go through this kind of studies in while studying this particular poem, I don't think you find any difficulty to fetch 3 marks, but just keep in mind you can expect a reference to context, because in your question paper there will be 4 questions based on reference to context. So this is the first reference to context from the poem side. So there are some other reference to context to be followed in the next poems. Wherever it is necessary, I just tell you about those particular things. Next poem is The Stolen Boat. Dear children, Stolen Boat, beautiful poem written by William Wordsworth. Dear children, whenever in our life we do some or other mistakes, knowingly or unknowingly. Sometimes we do with the mistakes with in intention, and sometimes we do in mistakes for fun. So in this poem, the poet is at the age of 12. He is a boy. At the age of 12, one summer evening, he found that a boat was tied to a willow tree. Nobody was watching him, and he just wanted to have fun. He unloosed the chain of the boat and he pushed the boat into the sea, and he started rowing the boat into the sea. What here the poet is, this act is called as act of stealth by the poet himself. That means he stole the boat when somebody was not watching him, and he moved into the boat. He started enjoying the moonlight, he started enjoying the waves of the sea, he started using the oars, and he went on enjoying the cool breeze which was blowing in the evening time. But suddenly there was a twist in the poem where he saw a huge rock in front of him, and those rocks initially looked very beautiful to him. Now those rocks started looking like a devil to him, and they started following him and they started frightening him. The moment he saw this, he turned his boat, he used his oars, dipped his oars into the water, and he quickly came back to the shore and kept the boat in the moor, the place where the boat is kept, and then he started going back to his house. While he was going to home, the same old black forms of the rocks were troubling his mind. He was feeling afraid. He's just forget all the good things in his life. He's watching of the sea, watching of the trees, the bees, and the green grass. He forget everything, and his mind was becoming blank, and he started feeling afraid, and those black forms started coming in his dreams. So children, if you remember all those things, what was the effect of the spectacle on the life of the boy? You can expect 4 marks. That means those rocks created a confusion in his mind, and his mind became blank. He was alone and he was feeling very afraid. He was in a grave mood, and he just comes back, and the same rocks trouble him in his dreams for months together. So children, when you look at this poem, there are 2 parts. One is where he has stolen the boat and went into the sea, and he enjoyed his ride into the boat. So they may ask you a question, why does the poet call this stealing of boat as act of stealth? So he started feeling the guilty of this. Now the message of this poem is, the poet already had stolen the boat. That made him feel guilty. When he went near the rocks which gave him a kind of fantasy in the beginning, started troubling him in the mid part of the poem, is because the guilt of stealing the boat was causing a problem to him. So dear children, these 2 parts, if you keep in your mind or read this poem and read the summary of this poem, I think it's not very difficult for you to fetch 4 marks. These 2 questions you can expect either one of the question out of these 2 will be there in your forthcoming examination. So prepare well for this 2 particular questions from this particular poem. Next, we move on to the next poem, A Mending Wall. It's written by Robert Frost, dear children, and this poem speaks about the nature of the human beings. If you have a particular thing, 2 people will have different opinion. For example, someone may tell you, I like to read during night. Someone will say, I like to read during the daytime. So, same thing of reading, there will be 2 different opinions. So, in this poem, the poet speaks about the 2 characters. One, the speaker himself, and another one is neighbor. The bone of contention here is the wall. The poet is using a metaphor here in this poem. He doesn't mean the physical wall. The physical wall is related to the mental block in the mind. Dear children, the story starts in the spring season when the poet calls his neighbor to build the wall, to mend the wall or to repair the wall. The speaker doesn't want the wall between him and his neighbor, but the neighbor keeps on telling one thing: good fences make good neighbors. So dear children, in this poem you can expect a reference to context. So make a note of it. Good fences make good neighbors will fetch you 3 marks, and this line is said by the neighbor to the speaker, and this poem is written by Robert Frost, and name of the poem is Mending Wall. If you mention these points, definitely you will fetch 3 marks. Later on, the speaker tries to defend. He says, I grow apple and you grow pineapple. Why do we build a wall between us? Nor there are any cows to eat. So they may ask you a reference to context. I grow pine and you grow, I grow a pineapple and you grow apple. So if this reference to context is asked, this is said by the speaker to the neighbor. So this way you can can think over the reference to context. Later on, they start moving and they start repairing the wall. This phenomena goes in every spring month. During the spring season, on the one side there used to be the speaker and another side the neighbor. Both used to go together and repair the wall. The speaker doesn't want the wall, but the neighbor says good fences make good neighbors. He is having the notion that I should have the wall between us. So the poet says, the speaker says, no need to have the wall among us, because the wall is creating a division between us. So in the end, the poet says that he, in a mocking way, he makes a joke with the wall, and he says, stay here until our backs are turned. That means he is telling this in a joking mood. He tells the wall, don't move till I and my neighbor come here. That means the poet is fed up with the wall. He wants a permanent solution from this. But still, in the end, the neighbor says, good fences make good neighbors. According to the poet, the neighbor is an old Stone Age cruel man who is in his darkness. So dear children, here darkness is not the physical darkness, it is his mental darkness. So the neighbor wants a wall. Here the physical wall is compared to the wall in our mind. So we are divided by these kind of walls, maybe because of the rich and poor, male and female, or because of different religion, different states, different countries, different languages. So the poet is giving a message here that we don't need any kind of wall between us. So dear children, when you learn this poem, you can fetch 3 marks from your examination point of view, plus in your life you can get a point that there should not be any wall between us. It doesn't speak about physical wall, it speaks about the mental wall. So when you go through this poem, concentrate on a reference to context type of question, which will fetch you 3 marks for the forthcoming examination. So the next poem is Bhutto, written by Toru Dutt. Toru Dutt, she is a famous English writer, and she has written this poem based on the mythological character, based on Mahabharata, named Bhutto. Bhutto is none other than Ekalavya. So Ekalavya, whom she calls as Bhutto, was very fond to learn archery from Dronacharya. So before understanding this poem, children, keep in your mind, you can expect 1 marks, 2 questions plus 4 marks when question from this poem, and it's an easy cakewalk as this poem is based on the Indian mythology. As you know, many of you know the story of this particular poem. You can concentrate on this 2 characters, the Dronacharya and Bhutto. You can easily fetch 6 marks. So initially, Eklavya goes to Dronacharya to learn archery, but Dronacharya rejected Eklavya, Bhutto, saying that you don't belong to a royal family or you are not a Kshatriya, so I cannot take you as my student. So the story goes on. Eklavya feels very bad, but he doesn't lose his heart. He prepares an idol of Dronacharya and he remembers him in the heart and practices the archery, and he becomes a master of archer. Suddenly Dronacharya was very shocked to listen, shocked to see his talent, and soon he realized he had given the promise to Arjuna that he will be the finest archer in the world. So the Dronacharya was very confused, he was perplexed. Then he called up Eklavya and asked, how did you manage all these things? Eklavya said, Bhutto said, Guruji, it's all because of you. Whatever I am today, it's because of your blessings. Then Dronacharya asked, when you have taken the education from me, you need to pay the recompense, which we call it as Guru Dakshina. Then the Eklavya was very in a happy mood. He said, okay Guruji, whatever you ask, I am ready to give it to you. Dronacharya says, think over Eklavya, I may ask you anything and it may cause you trouble. Eklavya said, Guruji, you ask whatever you want, you are my Guru, I am ready to give it to you. Then Dronacharya asked, I have already promised Arjuna to make him one of the finest archer. For him, I am going to ask you your right hand thumb. Eklavya suddenly takes out his knife, cuts it and offers his right hand thumb to the Dronacharya. Now, what question you can expect from this lesson is, 1 mark question. You can expect a question that why did Bhutto go to Dronacharya to learn archery, and why was Bhutto rejected? Because he did not belong to the royal family. Then 4 mark question, one straightforward question they ask you, was the demand of Drona unfair? Now the answer to be written by the students is yes, it is unfair. Then you need to explain it. Yes, because Dronacharya, just to keep his words with Arjuna, he asked his right hand thumb. According to this, according to the rule of learning, he shouldn't have asked this, because he killed the talent of a student to keep the promise given to the another student. So according to me, the recompense asked by Dronacharya is not at all correct or fair in this context. So if you write these things, children, definitely 6 marks will be in your pocket. So this is how you need to prepare for this particular poem. According to me, this is a bonus poem, children. 6 marks in this particular poem you can expect. Now we'll move on to the last poem, which is the 10th poem, CL.
Written by John Masefield. You can think of a one-line dedication to your mother. As we all know that when we are born, no parent makes a list of what they have spent on us. Did you find your mother saying, or I spent, when you were born in the hospital, I spent, this is the amount I spent in the hospital, this is the amount I spent for your medicines? No, you will not find a mother who has kept an account of what she has done till today for you. So it is your duty to repay her back in a nice way. And the best way is by studying and making them happy in this way. The poem says, in the very first line, in the dark womb where I began. Children, where do you begin in the dark womb? It's the mother's womb that is really the safest place, but the mother's life made me a man. Though all the months of human birth, her beauty fed my common earth. This explanation, if you go through the poem in a very nice way and you understand the poem, you can write the answer on your own. You just need to read the poem, understand it and put it in your own words. Expectation of a 4 marks question could be there, probably, which you could write the summary of the poem. You can expect a 3 marks question. Why is the poet compared to a leech? Then reference to context. What have I done to keep in mind my debt to her and womankind? As you know how to write the RTC, don't write it in a very lengthy way, just write it to the point, the name of the poem, the name of the poet, and what is the content in those 2 lines.
Right, dear children, now you have, since last 45 minutes or so, you had saying about how need to go with your preparation for 10 poems. Now once again I'll just put in a brief, in a nutshell, what are the glimpses of this entire poetry section. The poem number 1 is A Pair of Sorrow Screens. You expect a 2 marks question here, dear children. Try to solve all the questions at the back of your textbook. Definitely that will give you 2 marks question. Second poem, Abraham Lincoln's letter to his son's teacher. You will learn the poem entirely. You will expect a 4 marks summary kind of question, or they may ask you test of fire makes fine steel. There you can write it in your own words why the the poet wants his teacher to be very tough with him. Don't be too very cuddle him, don't hold him near. That's what explanation you can give in the poem number 2. Poem number 3 will fetch you either 4 marks or a 3 marks question, where you will need to compare the body, how the poet has compared his body to his temple. You can briefly write 3 marks from that. Then when you move on to the poem number 4, you need to lock in work, you need to by the first 4 stanzas. You can expect a 4 marks. It's an easy straight cakewalk because you have still another 65 days to go for your examination. You can just go through all your poems for 4 stanzas and you can fetch 4 marks. Then move on to the poem number 5, A Poison Tree, written by William Blake. Here you need to write the song, you need to memorize this poem. Very easy, very rhyming words in that, very easy words, you can grasp it. Connectivity is there, you can just cross over the line with this particular poem. Come on to the poem number 6, that time of the year you expect a reference to context question from this, wherein you need to understand who has said to whom in what context, who has written this poem. Then we move on to the poem number 7, The Stolen Boat, where you can expect a 4 marks question. You prepare for the 2 parts of this poem. One is how the act of steal, why the poet calls this act of steal, and then what is the effect of that particular thing, spectacle on his mind. You can prepare for this. Then we move on to the poem number 8, Mending Wall. You can expect a reference to context kind of questions, the discussion or the conversation between the neighbor as well as the speaker. You can highlight those points. Then come back to the poem number 9. You can expect a 4 marks question. That's for where you need to answer, was the demand done by Drona is fair with the Bhutto. Then 1 marks 2 questions based on the poem you need to answer, so you can get 6 marks there. Come to the last poem. Here it expresses your love and your affection towards your mother. Here the poet speaks about his love towards his mother, and in the second part of the poem he speaks, what have we as a society done to the women in the 21st century context, where the men treat them like a sexual commodity, where they have ruined the rights of the women. He is very fed up with this. He doesn't want to meet his mother, because if he meets her mother, she will feel bad about what the society has done to the women. So here you can expect a question with reference to context question, or a straightforward question, why does the poet compare himself to the leech? He says, I am like a leech because the leech sucks the blood of the insect. Similarly, I have sucked the blood of my mother when I am in the womb. So dear children, if you prepare on these lines, I think you can cross over the line with regard to the poems in your forthcoming examination. That's all from both of us with related to the first language, poems. All the best for your forthcoming examination.
Myself, Patsy Corey, from Shanti Southern School, Dharwad, dealing with the first language, English. My dear students, I am here to give you a few guidelines on grammar part and the writing section.
Welcome back, students. This time we are with the grammar section. I am Sudarshan Assistant Teacher in English, Government Adarsh Vidyalaya School, Dharwad. You are watching the guidance classes for 10th standard conducted by DDP office, Dharwad. So when you look at the question paper, you have three sections. One is the poetry section, the prose section, and the third one is the grammar and writing section. So when you have a look at the grammar section plus writing section, you can expect 33 marks out of your 100 marks in your question paper. When you take the first point as a grammar, there will be 10 multiple choice questions where you have 4 options, and the background knowledge of the grammar will help you to choose those 4 marks for one of the 4 options. Then you have 2 marks, 2 questions where you need to produce the sentences like active voice, passive voice, degrees of comparison, analysis of sentences, or active voice and passive voice. So these are the 14 marks you expect from grammar. Then you have the vocabulary section where you expect 4 marks questions, each carrying 1 mark, and followed by 5 marks in letter writing, 5 marks in essay writing, and 5 marks for the reading comprehension. So when you put together all the marks of grammar and writing section, you can expect 33 marks in your annual examination. So let me begin this session with the grammar part, where the questions which can be asked based on multiple choice questions. So you have some list of items in grammar like phrasal verbs, figures of speech. Then you have question tags, modal verbs, prepositions, articles and conjunctions, prefixes, suffixes. So out of this you can expect 10 questions in the forthcoming annual examination. So first point, let us have a look at the question tags. Dear children, in order to crack the question on the question tag, you need to understand the 4 basic rules of question tags. When the sentence is in positive, the tag will be the negative, and when the sentence is in a negative form, the tag will be in a positive form. And when you are going to form a question tag, you need to identify the modal verb followed by the verb and followed by the question mark. So the first sentence, where the sentence is positive, the tag is negative. For example, I can swim, can't I? So that means the negative form of can is can't I. It's a contracted form of cannot. So can't I. Next, come back to the rule number 2, where the sentence is in negative, the tag will be positive. I cannot swim. So what is the positive form of cannot? Can. So can I. Can followed by the pronoun and the question mark. So these 2 rules can have a chance to score 1 mark. When the tag is positive, the sentence is negative, or when the tag is positive, the sentence is negative. Vice versa. This is the 2 rules you need to keep in mind. Now, in some sentences, you find there is no modal auxiliary verb. So how to identify this? It's a very simple rule. First, you need to identify the verb form, whether it is in a present tense or it is in a past tense. And if the verb is in the present tense, you need to use 2 words, do or does, to form the question tag. So now, when do we use the word do? When the subject is plural. For example, they play cricket. The verb play is in V1, that is in present tense. So what will be the tag? Do they. So it is plural. The they is the plural, so use the word do they. Similarly, I play cricket. Now here the subject is singular. Does he plays cricket? If he is singular, does is the present. Does he plays cricket? So play is the V1. So what will be the tag here? Does he. So that means when the subject is singular, the word does is used to form the question tag. Whereas if the subject is plural, do is used. This is the rule number 3. Now let's move on to the rule number 4, children. Here, if the verb is in V2, that is the past tense, what is the word used to form the question tag? The word is did. So even if it is a singular or the plural word, we use the word did, or the helping verb did is used to form the question tags. Jim and Della loved each other. So now the word loved is the past tense. So even if it is singular or the subject is plural, the word becomes did they. Here you do not have the negative form of it, you have to use it in a positive form, did they. So if it is singular, he played cricket, did he. So keep in mind, children, If the sentence is positive, the tag is negative. If the sentence is negative, the tag is positive. If the V1, if the verb is in V1, you use do or does. If the verb is in V2 form or past tense form, we use did. So if you follow these 4 rules, definitely children, you can fetch 1 marks in your annual examination. So after the question tags, we move on to the one more important parts of speech, that is conjunctions. As you know, dear children, you have learned it from your lower classes. Conjunction is a word which joins 2 sentences. So now when you study conjunctions, we need to understand what are the coordinating conjunctions and what are the subordinating conjunctions. So the coordinating conjunctions joins 2 words, whereas the subordinating conjunction joins 2 clauses. Now how to remember this, how to bifurcate this? So there is a common formula to understand this coordinating conjunction. We call it as fanboys. Fan, F for, A and, N nor, B but, O or, Y and, yes so. So if you remember these words, keep in your mind, these words are used to join 2 words, and the knowledge of coordinating conjunction and the subordinating conjunction will help you to form the compound sentences as well as the complex sentences. Also, when you want to have a compound sentence or when you are joining 2 words, you use the coordinating conjunctions, whereas when you are joining 2 clauses, you use the subordinating conjunctions. So the knowledge of this will fetch you 1 mark in your annual examination. Next, when we move on to another important part section of the grammar, that is articles. Dear children, there are 3 articles, a and the. There is no confusion about using a because you use it before the consonant sounds. It's not the consonant letters, we use it before consonant sounds. Similarly, an is used before the vowel sounds, and the is used before some of the definite things like name of the holy books, name of the gods, name of the mountains, name of the newspapers, name of the rivers, so name of beautiful buildings, name of the historical places, or the superlative. All these things we use the letter the. Now you no need to get confused about what kinds of questions can be asked. At the end of your first lesson, Wrong Man in Workers Paradise, there is one section called Grammar Revisited. If you can go through those 20 examples related to articles, definitely you can score 1 mark in your annual examination. And sometimes they may ask you a confusing type of question. For example, the first letter will be a vowel letter, but the sound is consonant. For example, dash unique face. Now, usually what do we think? U is a vowel sound and we directly go into an unique, but it's not so. The rule is, even though the letter is vowel sound, but the sound is consonant, so you would like to use the word a then. Similarly with university also, it's not an university, it is a university. So similarly, some other confusing examples are like dash MLA. Now when you look at the word M, it is a consonant letter, but the sound is the vowel, so you use an MLA. Dash NCC, an NCC, because even the alphabet is N, the sound is a sound there, so you use the word and there. So keeping these things in your mind, children, definitely you can score or fetch 1 mark easily here. Just read the question carefully and see the sound, and based on the sound you can fill in the article blank in that particular question. Right. Next we move on to the another important section of the grammar point is preposition. As you know, prepositions doesn't have the rules. It is used according to the usage, the way you use. Based on that, the prepositions are used. Some of the prepositions can be used for places, some for the time, in, on, at, on. So you try to go through all those basics of prepositions, and same exercise followed by the articles. You have one more exercise related to prepositions. You go through those, definitely you can fetch 1 marks in your annual examination. So this is how we deal with the preposition. The same next followed by the modal verbs. Can, may, might, should, could. So go through all the usage of this. For example, can speaks about the use of ability. May is used for permission. Will is used to tell about the intention. Must is used to tell about the duty or obligation. Ought to is used for the moral obligation. Once you understand the usage of the words, I think it becomes very easy for you to fetch 1 marks under the section of modal verbs. Next, there's one more section, phrasal verbs. Now, what is this phrasal verb? The word itself says phrasal verb is combination of a verb and preposition. So when you put the verb and preposition together, the meaning entirely changes. For example, call on. The Prime Minister of India called on the Prime Minister of America. What is the meaning of called on? Call and on is nothing but meeting. So similarly, phrasal verbs, they convey a different meaning when the preposition and the verb come together. So now how to solve this kind of questions related to the phrasal verbs. There are exercises given at the end of the textbook. For example, after the end of the lesson Gift of Majai, you find a list of phrasal verbs there. When you go through that, and you can easily fetch the marks. You can take the help of the dictionary, or you can take the help of your teacher, and based on the context, you need to analyze the word phrasal verbs. Go through the textbook, the grammar given at the end of the textbook. Even though we need the knowledge of the grammar, we need to focus on the questions which are asked at the end of the textbook. So that will fetch you some marks about this. So phrasal verbs, you need to do your self-study. Next, figures of speech. The moment you are learning your poems, you can figure out the figures of speech. Now, what are the figures of speech you can expect in your annual examination? One is simile, metaphor, personification and alliteration. These are the four major figures of speech which you find in your poems in your textbook. There are some other figures of speech, but these are the four figures of speech where you can expect a question in your annual examination. Now, like, when the word like or as is used, we term it as simile. For example, when you are learning your poem Lochinvar, you say that my love swells like Solway river. The word like shows that there is a comparison between the love and the river, so you can term it as simile. My legs are pillars. This line which occurs in the poem, the body and the temple, has a dual nature. It's a direct comparison between the leg and the pillar. You assume it as metaphor, or in some cases the pillar is given the life of the leg, so you can call it as personification as well. So don't get confused. You need to go through the poems. For example, I unloosed her chain in the poem Stolen Boat. The poet says, I unloosed her chain. Her is here a boat. So that particular line is called as figures of that is called as what? Personification. Similarly, there is a fourth one, alliteration. What does it mean by alliteration? In a line, in a poem, if you find alphabet consonants in the same line, you can call it as alliteration. For example, in the poem Abraham Lincoln, you find the word called five found. The five found, F and F, fur and fur sound is that. So that is called as what? Alliteration. Even in the 9th standard, you had a poem, O Africa. In that poem, you had that tree there. T there. So that is called as what? Personification. So remember your previous lessons, poems as well, where you have learned this figures of speech. That will fetch you 1 mark, and you have a multiple choice question of this. So you can first read the question, make the connection between the things which are mentioned in the line, and you can get the marks. Right? Next, after figures of speech, the next questions you can expect from your examination is about prefixes and suffixes. Dear children, prefixes and suffixes. Prefixes are the words which are used before the stem word to have the opposite words. So you need to have opposite words. Many confusion things, questions are asked in the annual examination. For example, last year, 2-3 years ago, there was a question, interesting. What is the prefix of interesting? Uninteresting. Interested, disinterested. Satisfied, dissatisfied. Satisfaction, unsatisfaction. Satisfied, unsatisfied. So similarly, when the part of speech changes, the prefix also changes. So this thing you need to keep in your mind. Satisfied, dissatisfied. Satisfactory, unsatisfactory. So children, concentrate on this. Read your lessons carefully. You can find out prefix in each and every lesson. Make a note of it. This is the only way to learn the prefixes or master the prefixes. So you read your lessons, you can make a note of it. When the word is added before the stem word is called as what? Prefixes. Later on there may be a question on suffix also. They may ask you a question. They ask you, suffix is a word which is added at the end of the stem word. For example, public, publicity. Similarly, what is added at the end of that? Content, contentment. Entertain, entertainment. So the word which is added at the end of the stem word is called as what? Suffix. So dear children, when you are reading through your lessons, have a habit of underlining the words and understand the morphological structure of the particular word, and that will fetch you 1 marks. So dear children, when you take all these points, whatever we have discussed since article, preposition, conjunctions, modal verbs, pronouns, adjectives, so all these things, when you make a list of it, you can find 10 multiple choice questions in your annual examination. So this is about how to score 10 marks in your annual examination. Now there is another part within the grammar, that is 2 marks, 2 questions. Why these questions fetch 2 marks? Because here you are not expected to reproduce the rule what you have learned. You have to reproduce the sentence what you have learned. First you need to understand the tenses. Once you get mastery over the tenses, you can get over with the active voice and passive voice, direct speech, indirect speech, analysis of sentences, or degrees of comparison. So out of these 4, you may expect a 2 marks, 2 questions in your annual examination. In case if they ask you degrees of comparison and analysis of sentences, active voice, passive voice, and direct and indirect speech will be accommodated in a multiple choice type of questions. So children, if you go through all the 16 items which we already discussed, you can fetch 14 marks in your grammar section. So do well while reading. Have this thing in the back of your mind that you are expected to answer 14 questions, out of which 10 are multiple choice and 2 are of 2 marks question. That will give you a clear-cut idea how to begin your studies. This is about the 14 marks which you need to prepare for your forthcoming examination. Now regarding the writing part, my friend will carry it on.
My dear students, first and foremost, let me inform you, before you write your board exams, when you look at your question paper, let me assure you that not less than 70 marks are already in your pocket. The 10 marks where you can score is in your letter writing, 5 marks, your essay writing, 5 marks. That is what is very important I am going to tell you today about in the letter writing. As you know, there are 2 letters, the formal and the informal letters. The format of writing a letter is very, very important. As you know, my dear children, 2 marks is for the address part. The address has to be neatly written. The format has to be on the left hand side. The body of the letter can be written in 2 to 3 paragraphs. Write the letter to the point and not too lengthy. As you know, your letters, if written lengthy, nobody is going to have time to read your lengthy letters. So be to the point and bring out the points what is really asked in the content of the letter. Look out for the address in the question itself. The from address and the to address will be given in the question itself. Formal letters are letters related to our day-to-day business. Example, leave letter, a request letter, a complaint letter. I give you some examples. Examples like it may come, write a letter to your principal asking for 4 to 5 days leave, or write a letter to your principal asking for a fee concession. The salutation, very important part is you need to address as respected madam or respected sir or sir. Informal letters are letters related. It can also be called as a friendly letter. Letters written to your friend, mother, relative, and this salutation can be with dear, dearest, my loving. I assure you 5 marks in your letter if you have listened carefully to what I said. Coming to the essay part, again I say 5 marks is already in your pocket. You need to update yourself with the recent things going around you. For example, the midday meal scheme, air pollution, why Aadhaar card is important. As you know, essay has 4 to 5 parts. The first part is introduction. The introduction part needs to be only in 3 to 4 lines. Then the paras can be in 4 to 5 paras. I give an example. If you take up a topic on writing a midday meal scheme, you can write the meaning of it, the financial share of the nation and the state government, the types of items that are prepared, what are the objectives of the midday meal scheme, that is to increase the attendance, to remove hunger, and your concluding remarks can be your own opinion about this scheme with few examples. One more topic that I would like to tell you, a very important topic that is being taken in all the 3 languages is Swachh Bharat Abhiyana. Again here, the introduction needs to be just in 3 to 4 lines, very briefly written, following the meaning in the paragraphs, the objective with few examples, and what you can do as a helping hand towards this. That's all. With this, I hand over to Mr. Patil.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we are into the last session. It's like T20 match. We are into the slog words. The last section is about the vocabulary. Dear children, this is one of, I won't say it's one of the toughest, it's one of the kind of confusing, like, what kind of questions you can expect here is a big question mark. So my dear students, if you concentrate on these 4 questions, definitely no one can stop you from scoring out of out marks. So in order to score out of out or a 100% in English first language, this is the core area. That is where we are discussing it in the last part of our discussion. Here, what you are expected is, they ask you a question based on one word substitution. Now the question comes from where do they ask? One word substitutions, my dear children, you already have it in your textbook on your page number 64 at the end of the lesson. Louis Pasteur, the conqueror of diseases, where there is a list of diseases are given and the list of the experts is also given. For example, a person who deals with the children, what kind of doctor is he called? Pediatrician. Or a doctor who deals with the ailments or the diseases with the women, what is he called as? Gynecologist. If a person who is having a problem with the eye, ophthalmologist. So similarly, a person who has a problem with his mental disorder, psychiatrist. So this is where children, you go through those sections, definitely that will give an idea. Not only that, you can come into your one more section of your textbook at the end of the lesson number 9, you have one word substitutions where they ask you about what is the meaning of selling the goods across the country. That is nothing but free trade. So similarly, you can have the questions understood there, one word substitution, definitely that will fetch you 1 marks. Next, you have the homophones. Many times this is a confusing one, they ask you homophones. Blue, B-L-E-W, blue means flew. Okay, flew means it's what you just blow away the candle. B-L-U, blue. Even though the pronunciation is the same, the spelling is different. So yes. Peace and peace. Check and check. C-H-E-C-K means check. C-H-E-Q-U is a noun form, which is the meaning with a piece of paper where it is used for transacting money. So like that, you need to concentrate on the homophones. Then you need to concentrate on the prefixes also. As I told you in the last session, prefixes and suffixes questions, either it will be accommodated under multiple choice questions or it will be accommodated in the vocabulary section, because as it is a prefix is a vocabulary word or it's related to the vocabulary or the morphological structure of the words, definitely it's going to be having a place in this particular part. Then followed by, you can have a antonyms. Sometimes antonyms. Prefix is different and the antonym is different, my dear children. When you look into your textbooks, there are so many kind of different exercises where you can find the prefixes and the suffixes as well as the opposite words, antonyms. For example, they have asked you about hopeful, hopeless. So in this way, you can go through all the words which are there at the end of your textbook. Contract, what is the meaning of contract? Expand, opposite of that is expand. Okay, so in this way, n number of exercises are given based on the items we have already discussed. Now what you need to do is you have to scan through or you can go through the exercises which are given at the end of the textbook. Dear children, textbook is the basic source of your question paper. You can expect many questions based on your text. You need to understand the theory behind the question and solve those questions in order to fetch more marks. Then one more question what you can expect in the vocabulary section is different parts of speech. they may give a word called as wise. Wise is an adjective and they give a wisdom. They give a connection, they give you the first word connection. Analogy we call it as analogy, how it is pronounced. So that first word, wise, is wisdom. That means adjective is transformed into a noun form. Similarly, they may ask you any word, they may give a verb and they may ask you to write about the adverb of it. For example, fast, fastly, quick, quickly. Or they may give you a verb and they expect you the noun form for it. For example, adjective, happy, they may expect you happiness. Happy is happiness. Okay, wise, wisdom. So similarly, you need to be in thorough how to transform the word from noun to adjective, adjective to adverb, adverb to. All the words do not have other forms, but few words are specified with different parts of speech. So you need to go through all these words. So dear children, if you have a glance of all the things which you have discussed and madam has discussed in this particular session, you can put together all the things. Definitely that will fetch you 33 marks. One more 5 marks is about the reading comprehension. So a passage will be given to you. You have to read it and you have to answer the questions based on the text. What strategy you can follow, my dear children, here is read and reread strategy. First read the passage and then reread the passage. That is the only way to give the answers. If in case you can start any vice versa, you can read the questions and then read the passage, or read the passage and then read the questions, again reread the passage. These three techniques will help you to fetch those 5 marks, dear children. So when you put all everything from this session into a nutshell, you can find that this writing and grammar section is divided into 3 parts. One is the grammar section, second one is the vocabulary section, and the third one is the writing section, and fourth one is the reading comprehension section. So dear children, if you start practicing it from now itself and keep the things in your mind and keep the points to be remembered from this session, definitely 33 marks will be in your pocket. So dear children, once again I wish you all the best, and just keep all these things in your mind and prepare well and come up with flying colors in your annual examination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear children. God bless you and do well in your exam. Do well and leave the rest to God.